The Incredible Hulk will not be presented this evening.
Word Balloon. Word Balloon is brought to you by the League of Word Balloon Listeners. Welcome back, everybody. It's time again for Word Balloon, the comic book conversation show. John Suntress with you. Always happy to welcome Reilly Brown back to Word Balloon. Good to see you, man.
Yeah, you too, man. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Well, you've always got something cooking, Reilly, and I'm excited to talk to you about your new project that you're working on now, Thunder Guardian. Everybody, here it is.
Yeah,
Will Brown and Reilly Brown. Tell me about the collaboration first. And obviously same name, but a relation, or what's the deal?
Yes, I am in fact related to the writer here. It is my 8-year-old son, Will. This is a comic that I don't know. It's a lot of fun. Like, he would go to school, it started off when he was in kindergarten. He'd go to school, he'd come home with all these drawings, and I would just ask him about the characters he was making, see if any of the old comic book magic had somehow squeezed off into him, right?
Sure.
And he would tell me these stories that were just like so crazy, and these characters that had such cool, fun powers and names and all this stuff. And I was like, man, this is awesome. This is like, I want to draw this story. Like, this is Marvel and DC aren't giving me anything this crazy. So it started off, I would just kind of draw some of his, like, he would draw his characters, then I'd kind of do my version, and that was fun. But then we got this opportunity. I met the guys that make A Kid and a Comic, which is a newspaper that is all comics pages. Like, the whole thing's comics pages.
Oh, wow.
And it comes out once every month or two. And it had a bunch of other comic book, like, well-known comic book guys doing stuff in it. Like, Scott Hanna has a comic strip.
Cool.
I don't know, like a bunch of guys.
So
and
who's publishing this? And once again, because I want to direct people to this, is this something like Scholastic that's distributed within schools, or
It's pretty new. It's not in schools yet. It's just wait, I got one here.
Yeah. Because also here, while you're getting ready, everyone, this is Reilly's son's depiction of Thunder Guardian. Here you go.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There he is. So I think he drew that when he was like maybe 6 years old or something.
Fantastic. I didn't realize. Because truly, you sent me previews and stuff, and I'm like, oh. All right. And I didn't even put two and two together initially.
Yeah, so this is part of the. So he'll draw that, and like, I love the colors he uses, the color combinations, and like, I'll ask him kind of like what's going on and who this character is and stuff. And then I think if you scroll, the next page is my version of the same character design.
Yes.
And so then you can see how it's like, okay, I took like the spikes on the head, and like I try to use like the way he uses color to kind of dictate what, how the costumes go. And like, oh, there's like he had a weird like black line on the other one. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a shoulder pad maybe. And so, like, I think it was just like the lines he used for the wings kind of just attached. I'm like, oh, that's kind of like a harness. Like, so it's fun making it all work, and he gets so excited about stuff like that.
All right.
Or
sometimes listening, real fast. If people are only listening, you got to watch the video on Word Balloon's YouTube channel, because
I'll show it to him. He wants to be here. I told him I was doing a podcast, and he's like, well, you got to tell the guy that he's interviewing the wrong guy. I'm the one he wants to talk to.
He's not wrong, Riley.
I know.
It's kind of like talking to Don Heck back in the '60s instead of Stan, about something, and it's like, well, although I don't know, maybe Don, actually, shame on me. Maybe Don had more to do with design than Stan did.
I don't think Don Heck was in third grade at the time.
That's true. Exactly. Very good point. Very good point.
So
I'm sorry.
anyway.
So what's the name of the publication again?
It's called A Kid and a Comic. As you can
Stand
see
by.
And
zooming in. There it
there
is.
you go.
Wow. Oh, that looks great, man.
Yeah, well, this is Glenn Whitmore. I usually switch off the front page. This one I got this was the Christmas edition last year, and I got a full page for it.
Yeah.
So so we met these guys, and it's all they publish it themselves, A Kid and a Comic, and they're out there hustling. They just got a deal with some children's hospitals to distribute them there.
That's
and,
great.
I don't know if it might be too early to announce that, but I mean, whatever. The point is, they're out there hustling and
that's wonderful
deals and stuff.
Formatically, it reminds me of Wednesday's comics back in the day when DC was doing that. And I was wondering, Riley. So you answered my question. Everyone here is one page that Reilly did and will. This is I think chapter 1.
So each page is, at least for the first chunk of the book, is just one of the comic strips from the newspaper.
Sure.
And but because it only comes out once every 2 months or so, there's only so many pages. So that's going to be the first half of the book, and then the second half is going to be some new comics that I'm doing. I haven't done this yet, but I want to try to get at least a few pages of me telling the story to Will and getting him to draw it. So we'll see how that goes. And Will's little sister Caroline is gonna make a guest appearance at one point. She's got her own character, Pink Baby, that is going to sneak in there. So, but it's just fun, and it's the story. It's very a very Dogman type of humor. There's a lot of boogers involved. You'll read it and it's oh yeah, this is what the stuff I liked when I was in second and third grade, and stuff like that.
No, that's great. All right, well, wait, give me a description of Thunder Guardian. Here is a beautiful kind of splash page or cover potentially.
So the basic premise is that it's sort of like Earth has been destroyed and Thunder Guardian lives on Mars. And he sort of flies, and how only some of this has only actually made it into the story so far, but we'll reveal bits and pieces as it goes. But the general idea is that he sort of flies around space looking for pieces of the Earth to kind of, I'm not clear yet if he's either trying to rebuild the Earth, just put it back together, as if it was a Lego that got shattered, or maybe just bring pieces to Mars to kind of reestablish human society there. So, while he does that, he runs into a variety of villains that have crazy powers. And, so Thunder Guardian himself has a suit of armor like Iron Man with rocket boots. He's got wings. And they're not, to be clear, they're not angel wings. They are cool metal spiky wings. So that's very important. It's different.
Will, we respect that. That's all right. Yeah. Absolutely, man. And there is a difference, I understand.
And he's got lightning powers and stuff like that. And then he's got a group of friends. And so, it's fun. It's really cool.
It's a great idea, man. And truly, I love this format. And I was wondering if it was a web comic first or whatever it was. So are you kickstarting a book? What are you doing? What are you doing with the full trade that you're planning?
It's going through Zoop. So crowdfunding, not Kickstarter, but crowdfunding. And Zoop is handling all the...
Reilly, I will tell you, and I will tell everyone that is watching and listening, that I have nothing but respect and admiration for you and your work. Not a Zoop fan, but that is just my own personal opinion.
Okay.
I'll tell you afterwards about my feelings about Zoop. But that said, this is a crowdfunding platform. We want to support Reilly. That is why I am talking to Reilly, and despite his choice of crowdfunding platforms, I'm very happy to promote this and promote what Reilly's trying to do.
Whatever your beef with Zoop is, I don't know. They're very nice to me. And
Good.
I've had a lot of friends who've had successul campaigns that go through them, and I had put out some very nice books.
As have I. Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. Hey man, and I'll even say the John Paul Leon Winterman tribute book that they did was incredible.
Yeah, I look at my Dan Panosian art collection book all the time. It's gorgeous. So they
anyway, it's cool.
So I got hooked up with them, and you know what? I like they're very creator friendly, at least to me. I don't know your experience.
Sorry, buddy. I apologize for the editorial. Again, feel free. It's quite all right.
But I mean, one of the I talked to a few people before I made a decision, and one of the things that this is it's a passion project. I'm not expecting to make a ton of money off it. I'm not betting the farm on it or anything.
Okay.
I'm I just want to do it. And I've got all these comic strips. And so the format has to accommodate that, because I don't want to redraw half a book to make it in a more commercially successful format. And one of the things, if you know comic book retailers, they like things to be a certain size and a certain shape. And just by the nature of what this was, it wasn't going to fit that. And so other people I talked to were like, okay, well, we need to make it somehow fit into this format so we can get more distribution. I'm like, I get that. I would love to talk about that for possibly a future project, but this particular thing, I want to make sure, it's got to be what it's got to be. And Zoop was like, yeah, dude, whatever you want, we can make it happen. So.
Well, let me ask you, because I remember, and good Lord, man, every time I look at the watch or the calendar, I'm like, holy shit, has it been that long? But I remember in the early 2000s when Marvel just took the usual comic book and then, flipped it horizontally, and we had widescreen comics. And I would assume, again, I'm going to put the page up here, that would accommodate the size of a standard comic book just on its side. So, again, are you going to, when it comes out, is it going to be in that more widescreen coffee table book, including the cover? Or would you do a standard comic book cover and then you can, when people open it, they can tilt it and read it?
The plan right now is to make it the dimensions are going to be more or less comic book size. So I think it'll be exactly the same size as a Marvel or DC comic, but it'll be bound on the side, which would, normally would be the top. So you'll open it and it'll be super wide, which will be fun. And
so but then also stores can display it. Well, again, it depends on your cover. I understand the spine will be like that, but I don't know if maybe to make it easier for the retailer so that people aren't, creating ow. I really like your book, Reilly, but ow.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably a good idea. Maybe on the back, I don't know, maybe one side should be one side, more standard. That would be smart. We'll see how smart I'm feeling.
I'm here to help, Reilly. I'm here to help you.
Yeah, that's a good idea. But we'll see. Because then the other thing was I was just looking at the calendar. I'm like, you know what? I want it to come out because my family's coming to San Diego Comic-Con this year for the first time. And
hey, that's great. Oh my God, the kids are gonna wow, I can't imagine. Keep going.
Yeah. So I was like, well, wait, if we're gonna do a Thunder Guardian comic, this is the year to do it because he's gonna be there. So I want him to, we'll have the comic from the sign. We do a father-son signing somewhere. It'll be fun.
Yeah. So I forget who did an X-Cop back in the day.
Yeah, that came out through Dark Horse.
Yes, and I forget who the creator is, but again, an idea that started with the guy's kid,
Nickel Brothers or something like that, and
also Artie Baltazar has involved his kids with a lot of his funny animal creations that he's made over the years and stuff. So
well, when you have kids, there's such a great source of crazy ideas, and there's so much kids say the darndest things in there too, where it's all right, I'm writing that down. I don't think you know what that means.
No, that's truly, man, that's fantastic. And again, no, you it's the hopeful audience, and also, like you said, honestly, I am so blind to what an 8-year-old wants, and I keep saying, and a couple of years ago for a convention panel, I was just a panelist, and they're like, well, of course we're going to talk about Dogman, and I'm like, what? And they're like, oh yeah, Dogman, and they explain everything, and obviously Renee Telgemeier and Captain Underpants and all that stuff. And it's so funny, man, because, and again, forgive the editorial, but people are like, man, I wish the kids would really get into, the comics we grew up with. And it's like, why would you like force that on a kid? Just let the kid find the comics he likes. And eventually, and again, thank God, just like when we were kids, there are cartoons, there's movies, there's TV shows. So they'll get to the DC and Marvel worlds, but let them enjoy their comics. They are their comics.
John,
God,
Hang on a second, John. Let me get my soapbox.
Oh, please, Reilly.
Dust this off real quick because
okay.
I've got so many thoughts about that, and it's the type of thing that like makes me want to tear my hair out because I'm living half my time or more in a world of kids under the age of 10.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Dogman. That Dav Pilkey is the king of elementary school. Like kids are having birthday parties with Dogman this and Dogman that. Like they love it. You've got these like kids are reading 20 plus graphic novels. Like by the time they're in 3rd grade, they're like, I've read like all of them. I need more. They're so hungry for this stuff. Yes. And the problem is comic book retailers don't get enough of that stuff. And it's like,
I agree.
And so you've got an audience. These kids are voracious graphic novel readers. And they're going to go into a comic store and they're going to say, oh, I love comics, but my favorite comic isn't here.
Yep.
And so they're going to go elsewhere. So really though, it's, it's frustrating, but it's also just, because of the market, it's sort of a self-healing thing where a whole new market has sprung up of children's bookstores, and comics are slowly taking them over. And so you're going to have like a whole separate type of comic book store, which are, these kids bookstores, which have brilliant comics or brilliant books, all sorts of stuff. And It's just, okay, not so many muscles and guns, which is, fun. But it also, it drives me crazy because I love the LCS system so much. As an artist and a fan and creatively, there's so much there that I'm like, we have so much freedom there and so much like ability to, there's such a legacy of all these great stories and stuff that come through there, and that whole community and culture and stuff. And it's like, I want them to future-proof themselves. So I'm like, dude, you got to get this Dogman stuff in there, and some of the other, there's long coattails on that. So there's plenty of other books to read, and so it's like I want them to start investing in that because, there's going to start being more and more dwindling returns. And I think right now, you've got a solid parent-child like generation gap. Absolutely. You can jump. Yes. I think that in a few years you might not anymore, because I really have always kind of felt like my generation was the like the X-Men 97 generation.
Sure.
Was sort of the last really big like LCS, like that was huge, and then manga came in and that went elsewhere. So
yeah,
I'm like, you've got all these dads coming in, have some books for them to take home to their kids, have reasons for them to bring their kids in. Some stores do it and they do a great job, but I still go into stores all the time where like I'll talk to the manager or whatever and I'll mention kids books and they're like, oh man, I haven't even thought about that. And it's like,
I hear you. So, honestly, Reilly, Art Baltazar and Franco, the guys behind Tiny Titans, they it's been over 10 years. I forget how many years they've had their 2 stores in suburban Chicago and Harrison, New York. And from day one, they're like, oh no, we're carrying kids books. And I know here in the Chicago area, the suburb they're in, Skokie, Illinois,
Uh,
were thrilled that
yeah.
my God, like they gave them literally the key to the city. And they're
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
this store
wow.
is great because it's promoting literacy and it's getting kids to read. And everything you just said is exactly their motive of,
Yeah.
hey, we got something for dad and we got something for the kids. And there's room for both. And every smart local comic shop should, at the very least, set up one rack.
Yeah.
And there's plenty of stuff. And, you know, I mean, there's the obvious ones like Bone with Jeff Smith
Yeah.
and Captain Underpants and everything Renee does and Dogman and everything. It's like, no, man, it's really you're leaving money on the table, not investing in children and getting them now, just like when we were kids. Absolutely.
Yeah. It's more than leaving money on the table. It's like you want to start the habit, you know, and like we know, right? We're the addicts that go in every week, right? And so like, but it's, you know, it sounds bad when you say an addict, but it's not, because it's awesome.
Oh, come on.
We love it. And
yeah.
Especially for kids, it's reading and all that stuff.
Well, and also kids have fewer and fewer like retail brick and mortar stores to hang out in. I forget. I mean, literally, I made that comment today on Facebook when someone was bummed about the demise of some brick and mortar store. And it's like, God, man, we had record stores, we had bookshops, and of course we had comic shops. But yeah, I mean, kids have less like free places that they could just walk in and browse and think about their own cultural, influences.
Yeah, well, and so many stores are really smart about having like the Pokemon card tournaments and stuff on weekends. So they do get those kids in. It's like, give them some of the books that like these kids are not going to want to read Watchmen. It's simply not appropriate for them, even if they did want to read it. But if you put the newest Cat Kid comic up there, you'd be sold out in a day. Like, I swear to God.
Yeah.
And also, like you mentioned things like Bone, which is, you know, one of my favorite comics ever. And I've talked to retailers before about this, where they're like, the problem with Bone is that it's only, I mean, it's, you know, it's a series, but it's like you get the big one or whatever, and it ends. It's like, well, what's next? So I'm like, well, that's the beauty of Dogman and Cat Kid and Dav Pilkey in general. There are so many of them that you can have a little shelf, and so, you know, they come in 1 week, they get one, they come back. And I don't know. I there's a lot of tools. There's Dav Pilkey is giving you the tools, baby. And then, you know, put a little Thunder Guardian right next to that. You get your Dogman, you got your Cat Kid, and Thunder Guardian. That's
another great series of books, and all he does is continue to, you know, go beyond. The great Judd Winnick, a dear friend and a guy that, you know, made his mark in Marvel and DC, but we all forget that in his college years was doing more Bigfoot kind of cartoony books and drawing themselves. And Hilo, and I want to compare Hilo to what you're doing, because what I loved about Hilo was he was putting superhero moves in this Calvin and Hobbes style comic book. And what I like about what you're doing with Thunder Guardian and stuff, hey, this is classic superhero action and stuff.
Yeah.
But again, I appreciate that it's a kid's book, but you're giving them all the moves that they would want, or they may grow into when they suddenly are like, oh, I didn't know there were X-Men comics. Great, let me read some, you know, and I've loved comics so long. So no, I think this is excellent, man.
Well, and also like what 8-year-old kids like really hasn't changed. It just doesn't change over the years. One of my kids' favorite comics is the Garbage Pail Kids comic that comes out. And it's just as inappropriate as it ever was, right? Where it's like, it's all boogers and farts and all that stuff. The artwork is great. I mean, I think they got the same art, Zappa or whatever. The guy that drew the cards in the 80s is drawing the comic.
Crazy.
And it's like, it still works. It still connects with them, and he thinks it's great.
That's excellent. My buddy Don Lenza is chiming in and says, thanks to Word Balloon, I've become aware of kids' comics and comic artists and writers, and what a wealth of talent is out there. Yeah, man. Well, you know, and even, again, I'm older than you, Reilly, but truly, I loved my older cousins, Betty and Veronica, and other Archie comics, and Richie Rich. I had one of my best friends still, like, was all about Harvey books, Richie Rich, all hot stuff, all that stuff. And it's like, yeah, man, it used to be a big comic book world. It is again, but wise up and recognize that, this is where the new kids are coming from.
Right. Yeah. And the problem, you know, for me, I just see the problem as it's just becoming a separate market that is leaving this other part, like, that I love so much behind. And it's like, can we just get together?
Yeah.
Can everyone just,
Well,
like,
how's
figure it
it
out?
been?
But
How has it been? Are you, I mean, beyond, and I, by the way, and I will say this about Zoop, they're a turnkey organization. I know they provide some publicity. Are you talking directly to LCSs about carrying this book and everything? Are you, do you have that? Because you've done, I mean, Jesus, man, forgive me. I forget your gaming book that you did years ago.
gaming, was it the Fortnite one you're talking about? The Batman versus
Well,
Fortnite?
no,
Or
prior to Fortnite, it was your own creation where it was.
Outrage with Fabian? Was it Outrage with Fabian Nicieza?
I thought it was something more independent than that, but maybe it was Outrage. Was Outrage based on like video games in any way, or
I mean, maybe
what was your earliest
thematically.
thing, Reilly, that put you
My
on the radar?
earliest thing was probably Cable and Deadpool from Marvel.
Okay, and I certainly want to talk about that, but no, I was thinking of something independent, so maybe I am thinking of Outrage. I'm not sure,
Yeah.
but eventually we'll get to Cable and Deadpool. Certainly, don't worry.
I'm trying to like.
And if it's cool if I'm misremembering, which I do a lot.
Yeah, but I don't know when it comes to the
Play.
kids comic. Like, it's like being, you mentioned Fabian, or I mentioned him. One of us. Fabian
I love Fabian. Yeah, he's great.
Has entered the chat. No, not really.
Oh, was Fabian talking to us?
No, he's not. I mean,
okay, because every now and then the creators do pop in. So
yeah.
I was gonna say, wait a minute, did I miss a comment? Okay, keep going.
But this is something I think is kind of an interesting thing to talk about or to think about is, when through all the Deadpool stuff we did together, we'd have comic stores tell us like, we need an all ages Deadpool. Like, like we just had one trade where Deadpool, like, was appropriate for kids or whatever. And Fabian, it's like, that's funny. I never realized like Marvel wasn't for kids. And of course, he's being facetious because he's Fabian and sarcastic and everything. But the point remains that up till, a certain point that wasn't all that long ago in the grand scheme of things, Marvel was assumed to be for kids, and all the content was, I'd say 90% of the content was totally fine for them. Like maybe Kraven's Last Hunt's a little dark, and you have some.
Well, sure. Well, and actually, that's a great place to start to see where the trends change, because it was that grim and gritty period of the mid 80s, Dark Knight and Watchmen and Kraven's Last Hunt.
But even that stuff was like, there's a certain age, which is probably, as adults, it's probably a little younger than we expect it is. But we're like, they just see that and they think it's awesome. Like, that's badass.
No, absolutely.
And there are certain lines you can't cross that are kind of obvious. And as long as you don't cross that, you can't show, MJ's nipples or whatever. You can't, there's certain subject matter you can't have them talk about, in certain words you can't use, which are really easy to avoid if you want to. And,
but also for a period in the 2000s when Gemis and Quesada were trying to rebuild the Marvel brand and everything after the brink of bankruptcy, they had things like Marvel Tales, which was a kid-friendly line. Yeah. And, our dear friend Mike Norton was one of those great artists that, did the Marvel Tales, or if not Marvel Tales, I forget what it was called. If you correct me, everybody in the chat.
I think, I remember those books. Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And I remember Kirkman saying, and I get it, where he's like, yeah, but you hand that to a kid and it's like, well, that's not the real Spider-Man. I want the real Spider-Man book.
Right.
So that's kind of the catch-22 when Marvel did it back in the day. I think DC in recent years and the YA line that they have made and are giving us different takes on the Question and Nightwing and all these great characters and Zatanna. And it's like, that's a great idea. And also they're getting YA artists to come in and put their style on the established characters. So it's not, a George Perez clone giving you a watered down, version of a DC or a Marvel comic, if that's the perception. I always used to tell Mark Miller that his Superman adventures, which were based on the cartoon, I'm like, those are some of the best Superman stories I ever read. And he goes, well, yeah, I was trying to write I didn't care. He's like, he goes, I knew where the barriers were and I knew not to get too extreme with some of the ideas. But he's like, I'm writing Superman. Art Baltazar and Franco said the same thing when they were doing Superman adventures, and they're like, hey man, we're writing Superman. Are you kidding? We're shooting for the fences. Great stuff. And again, all these kids' books, all these creators, all they're doing is their best work. And thank God kids are responding.
And I'm not one of those people that's like, I don't think that everything should be, watered down and kid appropriate, or like, I totally get Watchmen is awesome, and you can't take the adult content out of that without watering it down. Like, but there are certain comics that every now and then I'll pick it up and be like, dude, you were 2 words like too far. Like, this would have been a perfect comic for a kid. Yeah. 1 nipple too many, and this would have been perfect.
Did you ever hear Mort Walker, the Beetle Bailey comic strip creator? He created his, and sorry everybody, because some people are like, well, that's a misogynist character. But Colonel Half-Track's hot secretary, Miss Buxley.
Miss Buxley, yeah.
And he had a censor that would make Mort Walker literally go with an X-Acto knife and go, okay, no navel for Miss Buxley. And he got so mad that one day he had in the strip in a panel a box of navel oranges and a picture of girls in bikinis, all with their navels and stuff. Now what are you going to do, jerks? And it's one of my favorite Mort Walker stories. So no, I totally get it. And also, it's so funny because you're right. Like comics were focused, certainly when, and again, I got a couple decades on you. So when I was a kid in the 70s, they really were focused on a 13-year-old audience, not too, and PG-13 is kind of a good number to hang that on. But then the grim and gritty period came, and guess what? College kids were enjoying the Marvel product in the 60s and DC product in the 60s and 70s. So no, by all means, comics, grow up with your audience. But by the same token, don't leave behind that 8-year-old audience that used to, spend 25 cents on an issue, and now have dad will do that. Forgive me, everybody. It's an old chestnut of my stories, but I was 7 years old. We're doing a vacation in the Wisconsin Dells, and we're in some gift shop, and one of those big Treasury Edition Shazam books came out. And my dad is like, hey, that's Captain Marvel. I loved Captain Marvel growing up. John, do you want this book? And I'm like, yes, please. And he bought it, and it was great. And that's what dads and the kids can do. And he's literally over my shoulder. He's like, oh my God, this is great. I remember there's Dr. Savannah. There's Captain Marvel Jr. and Mary. They're part of the Marvel family team. And I'm like, okay, great. And that's what dads that are so ensconced in the mainstream. It's like, man, if you're not turning your kids on to Dogman and forgive me, cat girl, cat kid. Pardon me. You see, again, I'm so glad we're talking about your book and this in general, because sometimes I will get created say, hey, I got a new kid book, and I'm like, yeah, but it's really not my thing, but it's God bless you and go forth, my friends.
Yeah. So what you mentioned though, that is a weird parenting thing that is kind of like, so like your dad's like, hey, Shazam, you want this one, kid? I loved it when I was a kid. There are some characters you can do that with. There are some you can't. Like, if I were to walk into a comic store and say, Batman, I loved Batman when I was a kid. You want this? It's like, you don't know if Batman's going to be like ripping his own face off in that issue. So it's one of those things. I'm a very, these days, I'm a very big proponent of like a reliable rating system that's easy to find. Like, just tell me if it's appropriate. Tell me, because the kids, dude, boys love Venom. Venom is badass. It doesn't matter how young they are. They see that thing and they say, that's terrifying, teeth everywhere, and it's awesome. I want it. Yeah. And it's like, Venom's one of the, because he's terrifying and teeth and awesome. He's always rated, has a higher rating. And it's like, but I know Marvel. I know that the rating doesn't always mean anything. So it's kind of like, I'll flip through and be like, it looks good. It's not too bad. I hope the dialogue doesn't talk about anything too bad, So I'm like, give me, I don't know, whatever. Being a parent's hard. And, but as
it is.
The editors make it easy for the retailers to make it easy for us. That's all I'm saying.
I'm like, unfortunately, I am like, I always refer to myself as Uncle Buck to my, to the rest of my family that has children, because I really am. And I remember when the original Ghostbusters came out, I told my older cousins, I'm like, oh, your kids will be fine. They'll like it. And of course, like even Slimer and like the librarian when she turns feral and everything. Oh my God. You know, my one cousin is like, they're crying every night with nightmares. Thanks a lot. And I'm like, I know, I'm sorry. I suck. I realize that. So no, it is hard. But that's why you're right. And you know, Gio Russo was doing those Marvel kind of like what Art and Franco did at DC. I know Chris Giarrusso was doing
the mini Marvels,
or that Superhero Squad YA show that Disney did, where like all the heroes they look like they were Korean figures or whatever. But yeah, it's like, okay, those are good ideas. Hey, I'm excited for the new Spider-Man cartoon. I saw the teaser trailer. It looks great. It looks age appropriate. Obviously, it's on Disney XD. I mean, that's the thing. Like, it can be done. And I am surprised that, I mean, I know IDW got the license to do kid versions of Marvel stuff in the last few years. I don't know what the current status of that is. But I look at some of these Disney XD versions of typical Marvel Universe characters, and it's like, hey, man, you should be making a comic like this.
I think they've gotten better at finding people that are the right creators for those projects. Because I think for a really long time they were finding the guys that like they were thinking of the kids line as like, well, we'll try out the new guy on this book that no one really wants to be working on. And they've gotten a lot better at finding the creators that are like, no, dude, I totally want to do the, you know, cartoony version of this or whatever it is. Like that. And so you've gotten much better quality all ages content that way.
Don has another comment. Art Baltazar's Cat Out of Water is smart and funny and is a great intro to graphic novels after the Dr. Seuss kid books. They're not talking down to kids is a real talent. Absolutely, man.
Yeah, but then, like you know, once again, it's like there are certain, you know, art styles or whatever that people associate with certain age groups, and it's like, you know, like when you said my style, it's like, oh yeah, this is like, you know, it's not like a little kid art style, it's like a 70s, 80s Marvel art style or whatever, and it's like, well, you know, when I was a kid in the not in the 70s, in the 80s, I was reading like this is what it looked like to me, you know. So like you could, I don't know, whatever, dude.
No, Reilly, as always, I kind of leave things open of let's see where the conversation takes us. I'm so glad we went down this road because I do think, I know that a lot of my listeners have kids, and again, recent in the last couple of years, I've just been aware of how the market has changed, especially when it comes to younger kids and things like that. So I think what we're talking about is valid. And again, it's like, no, I hope the LCSs that do listen to Word Balloon and then watch Word Balloon are like, oh, you know something, maybe these guys have a point. Maybe I should be carrying more kids comics and stuff. You know, it's not that hard. And truly, I think with a very small investment on the LCS's part, you know, you're really just opening a new audience that will grow with your store. And maybe by the time they are a teenager and stuff, they are ready for Captain America and the X-Men and the like and everything.
Yeah. I mean, that's, you know, if I had my own comic store, I would definitely think of it in terms of like, okay, the kids that come in for Pokemon, what's that age group? Let's get some comics on the shelves that, you know, maybe it works, maybe it doesn't. Because a lot of times I'll talk to retailers and like, yeah, we tried that, didn't work. It's like, okay, fair enough. But sometimes I've talked to guys that try it and they're like, dude, I tried that and it worked so well. And now like we moved the kids section to the very front and every week it expands. Like we're, you know,
that's the other thing. Yes. And that is literally because mom or dad might be walking in with them. And if they, you know, oh yeah, that's in the back. And it's like, well, great. But you know, like, have it up front. So like they know that, okay, we are catering to your kids as well as we're catering to you. Yeah. Good point, man. Excellent. And again, I love this conversation.
And as long as we're putting, you know, orders out there for publishers to publish for us and our retailers to stock for us, I'd like something for the little girls who don't know how to read yet, because there's ponies for them. There's not much else, and they just want cute characters or princesses. That's demographic. There's surprisingly little of that. And then I'd say
Jeremy
boys
Whitley does his Prince princeless books and everything. He does great, girl comics and stuff like that. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm with you,
those
man.
are good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I would also say boys who can read, but are not like that. They can't read everything, right? Like that
Oh, of course.
pre-middle school age. I think that's another group, which is like so ironic because that's like what the superhero genre started
So
as.
like first,
But
are you saying like first reader era book, kids and
yeah,
everything, or what do you?
I mean the Dogman audience, really, like that age
Okay.
group. But
Yeah.
like something in the local, like either bring in Dogman, or if you're like a publisher and you're like, hey, I'm just saying, as a parent with my focus
Yeah.
group of 2
Yes.
children,
Absolutely.
and all the wisdom I get from that.
No, it
But
counts. Go ahead. No, I'm with you,
but
man.
I think those are. But I do think that there's a lot of growth to be done. Everything I've said. I
Yeah.
think that you have a good opportunity right now for parents to come in. They're looking for. I can't buy something for Will without buying something for Caroline, right? Otherwise, I have a tantrum to deal with. So you do have to do that, and then you've made twice the sales. So
Absolutely, man. No, I am so with you, and I'm surprised, and maybe again, this is something I don't know if I talk to somebody from Diamond or more LCSs, because I mean, I'm pleased to say that here in Chicago, most of the stores here get it. Yeah. And they do. Yeah. They carry kids comics. They have them in the front of the store. They understand the thing. But I do know the few times that I've been to Diamond Summits and heard the back and forth between LCSs and publishers, it's always educational. And I'm always just a fly on the wall. And I'm like, I don't want to interfere or anything like that. I just want to see the kind of conversations everybody is having. And it's I think again everything we said is valid. I wanted to ask you indeed about also the we mentioned your time certainly at Marvel and things like Deadpool and Cable, Split Second and stuff. But I remember too, and this was part of it, was all your work on the Infinite comics for Deadpool.
Oh yes.
And how was that looking back now? Formatically, was it hard to put yourself into the infinite scrolling versus panel by panel traditional comic pages and stuff like that? Was it hard from a storytelling standpoint to convert?
It wasn't hard for me because I really love playing around with comics in different formats. Just look at my back catalog, right? You've got Webtoons, which is just like infinite scroll comics stacked on top of each other.
Yep.
And the Marvel Infinite things where you click on it and panels are like popping up everywhere. I'm doing newspaper comics now, I'm just, and then the regular comic, like I love playing around with different formats. So for me, it was a ton of fun to figure out how it works. I think the reason they had me do so many of them was because I was enjoying it, and through that I was able to be good at it in a way that a lot of people, like I said before with the kid comics, it kind of was a thing. They're breaking in new creators on. They're like, I guess if this is what I have to do, I'll do it, but it's not really what I want. So I think some people sort of struggled with it and fought against it a bit, where I was just like, no, dude, give me the weirdest format you can find and let me make it awesome.
Do you have a pro tip for aspiring creators that are using Webtoons and a way for them to think from an infinite scroll standpoint rather than the traditional comic page?
Yeah. Well, okay. Yeah. If you are if you're kind of bouncing between the two formats, the thing you have to appreciate when you're writing your story is the two formats have different incentives, sort of different limitations, right? And different things that make them work.
Yeah.
And once you understand this, it explains a lot about what's popular in these formats. So the most powerful, coolest thing in a comic book, in a traditional Marvel DC comic book, is the double page spread, right? When you've got a lot of panels on one page, you're building up tension, you got a cliffhanger at the bottom, you turn the page, and then you're hit with this big cool image of the Hulk pounding Deadpool or whatever it is, right?
Sure.
And that's super cool and exciting. And that is a particular strength of that type of comic, which is why superhero comics do so well there, because that's a big, powerful image. It's a genre that takes advantage of that. Big, muscly dudes punching each other is relatively easy to draw on that type of schedule. Whereas Webtoon, but then also the thing is, you only have 22 pages, so you have to like cram as much as you can into that amount of space.
Sure.
Webtoon is different. You are because you're seeing a small picture, so you don't have those big spreads. So like when we're doing Outrage, it was kind of a challenge to have big action scenes that had impact. I had to get creative with making a lot of the fighting going like up and down instead of like landscape format.
Okay.
And a lot of uppercuts and stuff like that to get the vertical stacking. But that format works. Oh, but then the other thing is like you have no space limitation really, other than the narrowness. So
yes,
and kind of the comics. If the comic's too short, the readers kind of feel like they're gypped. So they want the chapters to be as long as you can make them, and the longer you make them, the better. So that kind of incentivizes long like dialogue scenes, or like a monologue with one character, like thinking about, oh, I'm in love with this guy, but I can't say anything, and then he's like, I'm in love with her, and I can't say anything, and go on. You could repeat that over and over and over again as you scroll and scroll for like 3 miles, and the readers love that, which is why romance does so well there on Webtoon.
Yes.
And it does, and it doesn't, there's obviously other types of stuff, but that obviously something that clicks because it's like, oh, it's easy to draw one sad girl over and over and over again, as opposed to for 80 panels that are stacked on top of each other, as opposed to trying to make like a Godzilla eating a city look cool in a skinny little panel. So
prior to the tablet, I used to worry about where the splash page was going, and I'm like, well, you only have this much space, and the size of a I always used to say the size of a baseball card, essentially.
Yeah.
And it's like, so yeah, you're right, you get this big panoramic thing that looks amazing in a double page spread, but on an iPhone it's like, well, boy, there goes the excitement of a space, a galactic space battle, and I hear all the ships attacking and stuff, and it's like, yeah, but it's that big and everything. Yeah. So thank God for the iPad.
Right. Well, that was something we talked about a lot with the when I was first started doing the Infinite comics, which are different from the Webtoons, which I don't know if listeners like realize, like the Infinite comics, it was kind of made for, it was really designed for an iPad, and like Comixology and stuff when that was still a thing. But I wasn't worried about not having a double page spread because everyone's like, how do you get around that? And I'm like, you know what? I can build a visual excitement in other ways in that format with the way I'd have panels pop up on top of each other. So, but then when I moved to Webtoon, where you don't have that dynamic, like panels popping up type of thing, it was like, oh, okay, now that's where I did feel a little constrained as far as like not having a splash page. And but like working with Fabian, like his dialogue is so good. I was kind of like, I just started making more empty space or just putting the panels farther away from each other and be like, Fabian, now there's more room for jokes, fill it up. And, that was great. So, so to the aspiring creators out there, I would just say, look at the format, see what your strengths are and how they line up with the strengths of the format and make the most of it. You can do anything in any format, but it'll be easier if you just follow what the strengths are. So
excellent. You mentioned to me in our chat back and forth setting this up that you got some other things going on. Are you currently doing He-Man mini comics? You did mention Masters of the Universe stuff. Where are those happening?
Yeah, man. Those are they're coming up. As a kid, like He-Man was like my favorite, right? And those were the first comics I ever read were those mini comics that came with the action figures.
Absolutely.
And so I'd been seeing Tim Seeley working on his Masters of the Universe stuff, and I was feeling so jealous. And so I was at the San Diego Comic-Con this past year, and I was just kind of like haunting the Mattel booth, and I saw one of the guys that I knew who worked at Mattel, and was just like, "Oh, hey man, good to see you!" Like, "Oh wow, these figures are so great. You're doing team ups with Ninja Turtles and all that. That's so cool. If you ever need any help doing doing some mini comics or anything like that, let me know." He's like, "Actually, we might." And it was like, "Oh, okay." He's like, "Yeah, I'll be in touch." And like, that was that.
Outstanding.
So I've done a couple of them already. Hopefully they like my stuff and get me on more.
So is the plan then to release them with new action figures? Is that the plan?
Yeah. They'll be coming out with the action figures, just in the Masters of the Universe Origins line.
Fantastic. That's great.
Yeah, and it's been such a trip, man, because it's like I'm referencing the old comics from the 80s and looking at Alfredo Alcala's drawings and like realizing how much of that, like, because I was reading that as a kid, like that's the stuff that made me want to draw as a kid. And so just looking at it, at how much of it's just in my DNA, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool.
That's terrific, man. Again, I'm gonna throw up the shot of Thunder Guardian again. No, man, this kind of thing. Absolutely, man. I can totally see, and also, of course, your other work that you've done with Marvel and the like.
Yeah.
No, you're perfect for that. That's wonderful. That's so great for you. I love it.
I can't tell you what figures they're in yet because they haven't been announced yet. But I imagine they're coming out at some point in the next year.
Okay.
And, they are very cool. It's I'll say I was psyched. There is one character that was from the original 80s line, and then I did one for a newer character that's never been. It's like a new version. Anyway, whatever. So anyway, I'm very excited about it.
I was too old for. By then, I was dating and trying to make my way with women.
You're a cool older kid. You were.
I think 84, 85. I think was the debut of He-Man. I was 20.
Even earlier, it was like 82 or something like that.
Oh, was it 8? All right, fine. Even then, I was 18. Yeah. So it's like, all right, And again, God bless all of you that loved the Filmation stuff. I gotta say, I watched the Netflix Kevin Smith series.
Yeah,
it was great.
It was so cool. Yeah,
I loved it.
I was watching that with my son and everything, and so that was a lot of fun because it's like he was exactly the age now as I was when I was watching it as a kid, so that was great.
Well, and that's why I really think what you're doing with Thunder Guardian and everything, it's like, no, that's the kind of vibe where it's again, the design stuff they had in Masters of the Universe was classic, but yeah, just like your designs for Thunder Guardian, I think it's but again, it was not too intense for kids. If anything, they were probably like, whoa, look at that. Look at all the weird designs and everything.
There were a couple of parts that were a little much, but it's a fast-paced show, so it kind of breezed through it. Like,
okay.
Like, because there's a lot of like life and death and afterlife, like kind of
that's true.
Metaphysical, philosophical stuff in there that was, I think, kind of freaky.
Okay.
And then there's the weird scene where like Skeletor and Evil Lyn are making out, and it's so weird and creepy, and to a kid, to like a little boy, it's like, ew.
Well, it's all right. we had to deal with the mushy stuff when we were kids, and like, stop kissing, get back to the fighting.
It's just weird because he doesn't even have lips. It's so creepy, but that's obviously the fun of it, right?
Hilarious. So, oh my god. What other things have you got going on right now?
So let's see, what else have I got? I've got I'm doing.
You mentioned Titan. Something with Titan?
Yes, I've had a series going on there. Like, kind of my main gig is Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult, which is it's a fantasy series coming out through Titan, and it's based on a video game called Forgotten Runes Wizards Cult, and so I've been working on that for a while, and I've got new issues coming up soon. Cool. And let's see. Like, I've got, I don't know. We took a bit of a break, I think, to see how the first half did. And so a collected edition is either coming out soon or just came out. I don't know. There was some confusion about that because I think it was supposed to come out at the end of December, but maybe got bumped or so. I don't know. But whatever. Keep your eyes peeled. It's a lot of fun. It's like each issue is totally standalone. So when new issues come out, like you don't need to read the previous issues. You just pick it right up. But it's one of those things where like there's little hints that like from previous issues that are kind of like building up a larger story. So like as you go, they'll be like, oh wait, we've seen that magical item before. And then it comes into play in like a later issue. And it's like, if you don't know what it is, no big deal. But if you do, it's like, wait a minute, that guy used to have it. How did it get in that guy's hands? And then it'll all come together in the end, I think. So, so that's a lot of fun. And I'm working on, there's a new Ultraman card game series that's coming out. I'm doing some artwork for that, which is a lot of fun.
That's the classic Japanese hero Ultraman.
Yep, that's right. Yeah. I guess like they're doing like a really big push with Ultraman nowadays.
Yeah.
And
last couple of years. Yeah.
Yep.
And rightfully so, a great character, you know.
Yeah, it's really cool. And so yeah, it's fun doing some playing cards for that.
Sure. Did you ever used to watch the old 60s Ultraman show?
I'd never seen it before. I mean, you know, I'd seen little bits. I was aware of who he was, but I never really watched it. Except for now, like doing the working on this card series. It's like, okay, I'll need to know what a certain move is, and then I'll like start watching, and then be like kind of get hooked and like watch the whole. You know, it's like, wait, what's that monster? That's kind of cool. Let's see. Oh man.
Oh yeah.
So
no, that honestly, all that, and I, you know, I always forget the names of the studios. And for me, it's always Toho. I had to get schooled by Matt Fraction when he was doing the Godzilla Legacy, legendary Monarch series for Apple, and he's like Gamera. He's like, oh no, that was a different studio than Toho, and I'm like, I had no idea. You know, again, I'm you know, I always watched, you know, I watched the old movies when I was a little kid and stuff, and yeah, it was just another monster, you know, kaiju movie as far as I was concerned. It's crazy. It's
amazing, isn't it? How like, you know, we know all these Marvel and DC characters, right? Like you'll know like Earth 2 version of this character, you know all of the minutia, and then like the other side of the world, they've got, you know, other characters, and it's like a whole new thing that like you go down that, see what brilliant ideas they've got over there. It's awesome.
My God, no, and nothing but appreciation for the fact that they, you know, really were doing their own thing, and for so many decades. I mean, over 60 years. I mean, hell, and you know, Godzilla obviously just had the 70th anniversary and everything.
Right.
So no, it's crazy. I suppose I have to ask you what you thought of Deadpool Wolverine.
Oh man, what did you see? You saw it, right? I know you're not an X-Men guy, but I loved it. I thought it was so good.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. No, I enjoyed it, and thank God, because really, I think, unfortunately, Phase 4 and 5 of Marvel post Endgame has been a struggle, frankly. So it's kind of glad that they got back to Deadpool, where they know what they're doing.
I love that was literally the plot. Like the plot was Kevin Feige needs us to make $1 billion or we're fired.
Yep.
And that was like, and they're like, okay, so we did a movie, and that's what, and like, sure, there was some like time cops or whatever in there to like have a real plot, but you know that
I gotta be honest, Reilly. I really hope that what's coming eases up. I mean, I assume with Downey coming back as a Doctor Doom that we're gonna get some of this alternate universe stuff. But man, I gotta tell you, as someone that really grew up in the 70s, loving every Justice League, Justice Society crossover, and the ideas of Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth Prime. It's like, oh my God, it blew my little, you know, earlier than 10-year-old mind. Yeah. And now it's like, God, you guys are just beating this horse to death. It worked in Deadpool, and I kind of think it played up to the fun of Deadpool and everything. And also, it was such a great twist. The way Chris Evans, I'm assuming people saw it by now. I'm not spoiled. Yeah. But yeah, it's like, oh, look, there's Cap. No, actually, it's Johnny Storm. Fantastic. Hey, it's Jennifer Garner as Elektra. Fantastic. Yeah. Wesley Snipes Blade. All these characters. It's like, that is a great idea and a great way to shine some of those misfires and be like, yeah, you know, something really, this should have worked, and here's a way that they could have worked.
Right. So. Or, you know, whatever, they're cool actors and it's fun for them, like it, because it was just hilarious and the action scenes were insane. And I mean, for Marvel, you know, they really, I'm not a big multiverse fan, but you know, when it's done well, some of my favorite stories are multiverse stories, like Avengers Forever, which
absolutely, good Lord, I love that story.
I'm crossing my fingers that's what the next of, you know, at least thematically, obviously it's not going to be the exact same thing, But like,
It's a great
I mean,
idea.
like I'm hoping that I don't know. It's a great way to bring back other characters. Last time we saw Captain America, like he essentially was like, "Oh, I'm just going to be a time traveler for a while," and so who knows? He goes on adventures now in time. That's great.
Did you read that article that they were talking about maybe making an Agent Carter / Steve Rogers movie post Endgame? Of okay, guess what? Steve went back to the 40s to be with Peggy. Great. Here's what they were doing during that time, and I'm like, I mean, literally after Endgame, I'm like, well, you know what you could do with Captain America? Because listen, I am still, despite some of the early word we've heard about Captain America: New World Order or Brave New World. I always forget which one it is now. But regardless, I just think it was much like Downey as Iron Man. I really felt Chris Evans was so perfect as Cap, and I really would love to see him come back because
totally. Well,
he's great. He's great.
A great actor. Although for the new Captain America, I really love Mackie as the Falcon and everything. I liked him in that series, the TV series. Yes. There were some plot points I was kind of iffy with, but the actor I thought did a great job. So I'm psyched.
And I'll be honest, it was my favorite Marvel TV show. Falcon Winter Soldier really, to me, because again, it continued the story of all right, now what happens and everything. And I'm intrigued by Thunderbolts, and I'm excited to see what Wyatt Russell is allowed to do as John Walker and following him and everything.
So I'm fingers crossed they've learned some lessons from some of their, less enthusiastic movies of the past few years, and that because I mean, I don't know, the trailers looked awesome, so I'm psyched, but just don't give me a CG, kind of mid-scale CG explosion. Like, give me something that feels real and cool and new. Not because that's the thing, right? Like the Marvel cinematic universe started off with each movie had such a unique identity. Like they were totally different from each other. Like Iron Man was not like Norton's Hulk movie, was not like Captain America, was not like Thor. They were all so different. And then at post Endgame, it feels like they're all kind of the same. And it's like they need to find their identities again and be unique movies. As well,
some of the subjects and some of this. I mean, listen, Kathryn Hahn is really one of my favorite actresses, but I have to be honest, I don't give a shit about Agatha. And I mean, she was fun in WandaVision, but it's like, hey, there's a whole series of it. And it's like, again, as an old-time comic book reader, I'm like, I don't want to watch a series about the Fantastic Four's babysitter.
I know she's a witch.
I know you've youthened her up. And it's like, it's funny. I'm a big Bond fan, and I kind of love that Barbara Broccoli in charge of Eon and her brother Michael Wilson as well. Amazon can't do shit unless she says okay. And they're like, hey, what about an American Bond? No. Well, what about a woman Bond? No. It's like Bond is British. Bond is a man. And she said, I'm cool with a gay Bond. I'm willing to have the conversation. But no, he has to be British and he has to be a man. And it's like, yeah. And then some idiot apparently in this Amazon meeting, there's a whole article about it in Variety. And of course, like 100 articles about the article. But apparently she was in a meeting with Amazon, and some Amazon executive said, I never considered James Bond a hero. And it's like, well, I think you're in the wrong meeting then. Maybe you've got to go. And yeah, man, Reilly's slapping his head for people who are watching and listening instead. But yeah, man, I mean, it's and meanwhile, on the other side of the street, than Marvel, I'm excited with everything James Gunn is doing. I love Creature Commandos, and the Superman trailer looks great.
Yeah, it looks cool. It looks really cool. So
yeah. It's so funny. Some of my older friends that grew up on the comics, they're like, "What the hell with Crypto? Why is he a cute little dog?" I'm like, "Toys. That's why he's a cute little dog."
yeah.
I'm like, and it's kind of cool seeing a little, half the size of a Cocker Spaniel dog likely pulling and flying away with Superman because he's still Kryptonian strong. I'm like, that's gonna be great, man.
I heard that's just the type of dog that James Gunn has or something.
I had heard that as well.
Yeah, so he just likes that. So, which, fine, whatever. Well, but yeah,
and also just and again, old chestnut as far as conversation I always bring up. But I remember when Quesada told me, "Hey, we're making Guardians of the Galaxy," and I'm like, "Why?" And because when it was still on paper, I'm like, "Is that going to work?" And my God, Groot and Rocket are like every kid's favorite toys.
I know. Yeah, they're great.
Come on, man.
Like how random, but that's how good James Gunn is. He was able to look at that and somehow say like, no, I see what makes this work and I can pull it off.
And also, so he can appeal to kids with ideas like that. But I really love too, especially Creatures Commandos, hard R cartoon. And it's like great because again, as much as we've been championing, product for kids, I like an adult cartoon, and I really love the level of violence, the literally disembowelments and kill shots to the head, and all the sex, all of that. Yeah. I'm like, way to go, James.
You gotta have the full spectrum, man. You gotta, like, there's plenty of kids cartoons. Us that love cartoons, we're older now too, and we want some, like, we love Invincible and all that stuff. It's great. So
the Japanese have known that for decades. I mean, I remember in the 80s when Akira was playing at the cult movie theaters and stuff, and I'm like, why aren't we getting more? Can you imagine a Batman movie with this kind of animation? And it's like, well, we're here. And man, I even remember when Paul Levitz, when he was still in charge of DC, making the initial announcements of the first direct-to-video animated movies that they were making. And people are like, we're going to get the Judas contract. Well, maybe down the road, but right now we're really concerned about making, a product that's safe for kids. And again, I totally understood all that. Yeah. But thankfully, in the last 25 years, American adult animation has grown up, and it's like there's an audience for both. Please don't,
absolutely.
And then that's great. That's wonderful.
Yeah. And I think that, I mean, everything I was saying before about having it like comics for kids, we just need more of that. We have, because there's not enough, but you got to have everything, right? Like you want, like whatever.
Well, treat comic books as a medium and not a genre. Because honestly, when people are like, well, comic book movies, and I'm like, no, wait a minute. Because History of Violence is a comic book movie. Road to Perdition is a comic book well, not really. No, really, it is. And again, it's like, you got to get out of the mindset of, well, all we know is if it's a comic book movie, it's either Sonic, and even Sonic, I guess, is more of a game, or it's superheroes. And it's like, no, man, it's you can tell any type of story in animation. My God, Mizaki, Mizaki. I mean, look at some of his more beautiful and brilliant ideas that he's given us in the last 20 years. I mean, it's possible, and thankfully, filmmakers and television makers are starting to realize that.
It's just about having a system that knows how to get the right product to the right audience, right? And that can be hard sometimes, right?
Sure.
Especially when you need to build that system. But I mean, I think that they're doing a good job of it, right? like when they can get the Creature Commandos thing out there and the Harley Quinn animated series, my
buddy Pat Schumacher was the showrunner. And he also did Powerless, that NBC show that was like a half season blip. And really, like, he contacted me when Powerless was struggling and gave me this great conversation. And thankfully, he told me back then, he's like, we're doing Harley Quinn. It's not going to come out for a year or two, but it's going to be great. And I'm like, cool, good for you, man. And nothing but redemption. And that is another great adult cartoon.
Yep.
That was just brilliant. And I really love all the directions it went into. My God. I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say one of the dirtier jokes in the show. But my God, or even when Dr. The ESP guy, and I can't, the Wonder Woman villain, and I forget what he called her, that was so like cancelable in terms of what he called her, and that they showed all the reaction of like the world stopping, and even a dog peeing, like, it was like I can't believe you said that. You know?
What I want to know is, where is our Deadpool animated series? Come on, Feige! Like, greenlight this thing. Someone out there has a brilliant idea for this. Like, come on.
That's a very good point. Obviously, something they can't put on Disney XD. It's weird too.
They've got all sorts of crap on there now. They got Hulu stuff, and there's no rules anymore.
But I'm making the distinction, and I was going to say There's Disney XD, which is the over the the cable channel, and then there's Disney Plus
Oh, I see.
that has all the
Yes.
Disney XD stuff.
Disney
But
Plus,
no,
yeah.
you're right. Isn't it interesting that originally Disney Plus really was kind of the safe channel, period, and now they are including some Hulu stuff and a lot of Hulu stuff actually. Like Only Murders in the Building is on Disney Plus, and I was thrilled when the Orville also went to Disney Plus and everything. No, it is interesting how Disney has kind of morphed. And again, hey man, let the parents decide. It's okay.
Yeah.
There's
I think the Disney Plus, it does a great job of having like good parental control tools so that your kid can have their own channel, and you can like set the rules for it pretty easily, and so no problems.
Yeah, I'm with you. No, I would love to see a Deadpool cartoon at the level of Creature Commandos. I think that's a no-brainer. Maybe, hopefully, we're not, again, it certainly seems like Creature Commandos is getting nothing but good feedback, and I'm so glad to hear that. And I'm thrilled that Gunn can be the Kevin Feige now of DC, and do the kind of things that Feige's been able to do at Marvel and stuff. And but no, it would. I hope maybe that success would like make them think, well, hell, let's do a Creature Commandos. I never watched Hit Monkey, which I know is based on.
It's funny.
Is it good?
Yeah.
I know that was on Hulu.
It's very adult too. Like there's no like I don't. I totally love if they did more Hit Monkey, or they took that same crew and said, okay, now you guys are doing Deadpool, or just have Deadpool guest star or something. I don't know.
No, I'm with you, man. No, I'm so with you. No, and come on, it's a chimpanzee with a gun. It's like how PC can it be?
Actually, it's not a chimpanzee.
It's not. Pardon me. What kind of monkey?
Because he's Japanese, so he's like because he's like part of the Yakuza. It's like a Yakuza hitman's soul is trapped in, or I don't know what the conceit is crazy, but yeah, it's a Yakuza.
Daniel Way, my buddy Daniel Way, who I haven't talked to forever because he got out of the comic book business, but another former Deadpool writer.
Yes, I know. Yeah.
Excellent. That's great. Now, Reilly, you're killing it, man, and I'm thrilled for you. And we'll remind people again: Forgotten Realms, coming from Titan.
Forgotten Runes.
Pardon me, Forgotten Ruins. I apologize.
Yes.
Yes, it is different. So, Forgotten Ruins from Titan. Soon we'll get Masters of the Universe mini comics from Mattel.
Yeah.
But right now, with a Zoop campaign, it's Thunder Guardian from Brown and Son, Reilly Brown and his son Will. And God, everybody, I mean, look at this art. I'm thrilled with this. And again, the name of the kid's newspaper that it's in.
A Kid and a Comic.
A Kid and a Comic, everybody. Yeah. So how can people support your campaign? Where should they go?
So go to Zoop's website. I think it's like zoop.gg. I should have a link available. Maybe I'll pull one up real quick. But and yeah, or find me on social media. I post about it like a zillion times a week.
And I would assume your website too. There must be a direct line to
on my
Zoop
website. So Thunder Guardian's a relatively unique name if you type it into Google, right? It's not too hard to find.
Right. And I'll remind people that Reilly spells his name Reilly.
Yes, that's right.
And Brown is Brown. So no, that's no. So search for Thunder Guardian and search for more product from Reilly Brown. No, it's dude, I'm so happy for you, and I'm so glad that you tapped me on the shoulder and said, "Hey, I got something new. Let's talk." I'm like, "Yes, absolutely. Anytime, Reilly. You're always welcome back."
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's always a pleasure talking to you. And it's a great show. I listen to it all the time with my assistant when we're like, sitting in the studio working on stuff. It's like, oh yeah, let's turn on some word balloon and see who you're talking to this week, because you have such great interviews and such great conversations. So I love it.
That means a lot. I am putting up your Zoop URL, everybody. There you go.
There it is.
So for the video audience and for the audio audience, here, if you want to clock in and then just get the link.
Yeah, it's zoop.gg/c/Thunder Guardian.
Or if you want to come to the Word Balloon YouTube video, and you will see the link here at an hour, 13 minutes into our conversation. That's where you can see the link on our screen. But very cool, man. Excellent stuff. And I, as always, appreciate the conversation. And really, beyond what you're trying to do with Thunder Guardian, it's great to talk kids comics and remind people how important it is I think for the future of LCSs as much as regular bookstores. So, food for thought, everybody.
Absolutely.
Dude, thank you. I'm taking tomorrow night off, but I will be back on Wednesday night. Mark Wade coming back on.
Oh, cool.
He's got a slew of current comics to talk about, and we'll see how things are going for him. But Reilly, Happy New Year. I hope Christmas went well for you.
Oh, yeah. It was good. I was a good boy. Santa rewarded me well.
And I'm sure the kids had a good Christmas as well. So
yeah.
That's great. And really, man, that's thrilling that the kids are going to be able to check out San Diego. The sensory overload, my God, they might have to lie down just from seeing everything.
I can't, but they've been to comic conventions before, but mostly small ones and stuff. And, every year I go to San Diego Comic-Con for a week. So I think to them, it's really built up to be a big thing. So
sure,
they're pretty excited about it. And I'm psyched to have them there. So
fantastic, man. No, I used to take my nephews to the big Chicago convention. So I can only imagine how they're going to feel seeing the big show. Right. So, well, thanks everybody for watching and listening. Until next time, everybody stay safe, stay happy, stay healthy.